recipe for great food is simple. Make it fresh. Wings to go in Greenville, where every order is a custom order made with fresh ingredients. Wings to go, 7818 Wesley Street in Greenville. Simply great wings.
Need a part for the right price? Look for that red and blue sign. Henley Auto Supply at 1510 Stonewall. Over 800,000 CarQuest parts to choose from. Domestic, European, and Asian parts. Henley Auto Supply at 903-455-1969. 455-1969. Henley Auto Supply has the right part to keep your vehicle running. And backed by the best hometown service. Henley Auto Supply. Great people, great products, great prices. Henley Auto Supply and CarQuest.
We're in a little bit of a holding pattern until we get a quorum. We have 3 members of the council here. We're going to have to wait until at least another member shows up. We have one that might be zooming in, and then we have a couple more that I think will be here in time. So hold steady.
That's good. That's good. All right, gotcha.
I know. He said he could hear us. Yeah, he gave us a thumbs up.
He's out there in the atmosphere someplace, I guess, right?
Yeah, he's
Hey,
here.
Ben, how you doing? Call this work session to order. Items to be discussed. The first issue is a GEUS financial update by Erica Contreras, who is the Business Service Director for GEUS. Erica, would you come up, please?
Yeah, you just have to hit the button.
Okay, I believe we're on now. Okay, thank you. Again, as the mayor said, my name is Erica Contreras. I am the new Business Services Director for GEUS. And I appreciate the time to visit with you and provide a GEUS financial update. What I thought I would do was, it's been some time since we had the opportunity to share our financials with you. So what I thought was we'd kind of provide a comprehensive overview of where we started FY21, how the winter storm impacted us, the financial note we took out to finance Winter Storm Uri, current and future projects that we're currently working on, and some of our recent accomplishments. So just to kind of look back at how we started the year, in FY21, we began the year with an operating budget of approximately $71.5 million. Of that $71.5 million, 91% is comprised from electricity, and the 9% is from cable and internet. And of course, those revenues are derived from our customer base here in the city of Greenville. In terms of our operating revenue budget, operating expense budget, we estimated $70.7 million, 62% of that electric, 7% cable and internet, 12% capital, 11% in debt service, respectively 5% for city transfers, 1% for city services, and 1% for the Board of Development.
If I share my screen,
So looking back, I thought it was important to kind of just show the magnitude. I know that we're still talking about Winter Storm Uri, and I hope that that didn't delay us this afternoon. You know, people say, we're tired of hearing of Winter Storm Uri. So I just wanted to give some perspective of where we were at as of January 31st. And so what I've done for you in your packet and on the screen, I'll just kind of point the mouse here. I've boxed in all of our net positions. And so when we're looking here, we closed January. Here you can see that our net position was approximately $1.6 million. So I just wanted to share with you that that was a normal activity during that time. This amount as of January did reflect our capacity to remain within board policy for cash reserves. And currently our reserve policy is 150 days cash on hand, and our rating agencies are currently discussing moving that target up to 200 days. So I'd like to share that information with you as well. As we move forward into February and looking at the actual impact of the storm, just wanted to provide some action photos of our staff during the winter storm. And so our preliminary estimate when we first went out to kind of assess the cost of the storm, energy and ancillary services came in at $19.3 million compared to a historical average of $1.3 million for the month of February. Going forward into February and March, you'll see that there are multiple slides that look very similar. Where they differ is the month that we're reporting on. So I've highlighted up in the top left corner for you the distinguishing that one is for February and one is for March. And what these slides are intended to depict is how the storm impacted us. So we started off with showing you how we concluded January, which was 1.6 million. And you can see here between February and March, the storm had that $20 million impact on GEUS operations. So that's what you'll see on slide 7 and slide 8. in the Boxton Green area. So in order to finance the storm, many of you and many of the community members are aware that GEUS went out and we sought short-term funding. We did issue $20 million in debt to finance the cost of the storm. That was an attempt to support long-term funding for our CONT uplift costs, as well as to protect our cash flow and our bond ratings. Our plans for repaying the notes are to debt fund capital, delay accelerated debt payments, as well as to forego future rate decreases. And then the next slide here is also reporting on where we're at today. So you can kind of see that we have resumed normal operations. So you kind of see the aftermath. You can still see it in year-to-date activity. You can see how the $20 million impacted us, but you can see that April's beginning to normalize. So normal activity there as compared to prior years. Station that is currently in design. GEUS has also worked with the city of Greenville to develop a new streetlight resolution for LED lights. The new LED streetlight standard will be used in all new subdivisions and roadways. Ultimately, we plan that all streetlights will be changed to LED. Additionally, infrastructure updates. We have a backup control center that's underway, and we are in the middle of integrating our AMI. And what AMI is our automatic metering project. Also like to note that infrastructure and substation upgrades are very important to us. Those are important investments for GEUS. In terms of reliability, I'd like to share that we recently received a certificate of excellence from the American Power and Public Association in reliability, and that was our third consecutive year to receive this award. Accomplishments to date. Recently, GEUS received 2 GFOA awards, the first for excellence in financial reporting, and the second in Distinguished Budget Award. Each award reflects the highest form of recognition in governmental accounting, financial reporting, and budgeting. Also in the middle, you'll see that we've got, a big green check mark. That's because we received a clean audit report from Whitley Penn, which was also the highest level given for financial statements in accordance with GAAP. So just want to share that this is definitely a direct reflection of the staff that we have at GEUS and the hard work that they put in daily. A few upcoming dates on our current plans as we approach the summer. We will be working to debt fund capital. We are preparing our FY22 budget, and we plan to come back to the council with another financial update in November 2021 and May of 2022. This is the closing of my presentation. I've included some pictures of some of our departments as we celebrated our 130th anniversary in April. The top picture is of our steam plant personnel. The left picture is of our customer service department, and the right-hand picture is of our finance department. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and I'm available for any questions you might have.
Are there any questions for Chris? Thank you very much. I think you neglected to mention that during the winter storm, we were complimented by I think the manager of Denton Utilities, is that right? Or the past manager, is that correct? And also by the governor.
Yes, sir.
For your outstanding, and I don't know that any municipal utility in Texas performed any better than ours did during that period of time. Do you have any comment on that, or could you add to that?
Well, I am new to GEUS. This is my 3rd month with GEUS. I onboarded a week after the storm. So I have been living and breathing Winter Storm Uri. But I absolutely 100 commend and agree with the governor's comments and how GEUS responded to the storm. I'm also a resident of Greenville, and so definitely operated with with dignity and strategically, and that was obvious in the efforts and the feedback that we received from the community.
Okay, thank you. Are there no questions from the council? Okay. Thank you very much for your update.
Yeah.
Hello. There are you. Okay, item B on our work session is the fiscal 2021-2022 goals, council goals and objectives. I don't know if Carol received, I received some suggested goals, several significant suggested goals and objectives from City Council Person Atkins, and we attempted to implement that, add those into there. I looked at the goals. I thought the goals were pretty good going forward. In fact, we've closed out on some of the goals, but I don't know if you have any goals you'd like to submit. I don't know that we're prepared to adopt those today, but I would like in the next 2 weeks or until the next meeting, I think I'd like to suggest that you submit anything you may have, if you have something, and I'd like to adopt those goals. They're important to our budgeting process, so the staff will know what our goals are and how we intend to address those. So if you have anything you'd like to add to the goals as amended, they've been amended now, they're in your packet, which include our prior goals as well as the suggested goals that Mr. Atkins suggested. Well, if you do that, then I think we'll plan to adopt those goals. Summer, do you have any comments on this at all? Or Carol, do you, either one? Is that okay, or would the council like to comment on anything? Are you guys okay with that? Yeah. And that's not going to impact the budgeting process? It will or won't?
Well, I mean, we don't have any goals to move forward, but we can continue to move forward until you guys give us clear goals, and we'll just march on like we are currently.
Well,
So
I think you can assume that most of those goals in that draft are the goals that
Okay.
we will move
Then we'll
forward with.
just move
And
forward like that
yes,
until
I
you
think
give us
can
any
assume
different
that.
direction.
Some of those are modifications to the current goals, and I think they're pretty much right on. So,
Excuse me, Mayor. Item 8B on tonight's agenda is a resolution consideration and action on approving the 21-22 goals. Are we going to postpone that till the next meeting?
I'd suggest we postpone that to give people time. If we want to vote on those, we can. I'm prepared to vote on them tonight, but I don't know if the rest of the council is. So that's why I suggested that we delay that or postpone it. But what is the pleasure of the council? If you'd like to adopt those goals tonight, we certainly can.
No, I'm fine with waiting for another couple till the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I prefer to wait till the next meeting.
Okay. Are you all right with that?
Yeah, I'm all right with that.
Okay. Then we will postpone those. Item C on the work session is department budget presentations, and the first one is from Police Department with our Assistant Police Chief, William Cole.
Mayor, Council, and Manager, good afternoon and welcome to your Police Department's budget presentation for the fiscal year 21-22. I'd like to begin the presentation by giving you a brief overview of the department's structure, which will also include the responsibilities as they're delegated within the organization. I direct your attention to the screen and to the organizational chart that we use. Look at the upper 1/3 of this organizational chart. You'll find our administrative positions, which include our police chief, assistant chief, 2 executive secretary positions, our administrative lieutenant, our crime analyst position, and buried right in the middle is the emergency response team. Probably trying to figure out what's that got to do with administration. The emergency response team is an umbrella over 2 different teams, our tactical team members and our crisis intervention team. The commander of the emergency response team responds directly to the chief of police on matters that involve the emergency response team. The remainder of the department is divided into 4 divisions. Each division is commanded by a captain, and that captain is going to report directly to the assistant police chief. Those divisions include the Support Services Division, Patrol, Operations Support, and the Criminal Investigations Division. The Support Services Division is commanded by Captain Charles Starnes. Captain Starnes' area of responsibility includes the Communications Center, police records, our Property and Evidence section, as well as our personnel and training coordinator. Captain Starnes also wears an additional hat and oversees our records management system known as Spillman. Very important system. It touches every aspect of the department, including the patrol vehicles that you see moving about the city. Next is our patrol division, commanded by Captain Adam Phillips. Captain Phillips has the largest division in the department, so it's a great deal of responsibility. The patrol division is divided into 4 separate shifts, 2 day shifts and 2 night shifts that operate 24/7, 365 days a year. Captain Phillips is a very busy man, and as you can imagine, his phone rings quite a bit at various times, day and night. The next division is our Operations Support Division. The captain over that division is Aaron Huddleston. This division has a multitude of responsibilities shared by a very small group of officers. These various tasks involve crime prevention, sex offender registration and enforcement, traffic enforcement and investigation, courtroom security. The bailiff that oversees our courtroom security also doubles as our warrant officer, and additionally, he assists our personnel officer with background investigations on both sworn and civilian applicants for positions within the department. The Operations Support Division is responsible for running our police programs such as Citizens Police Academy, Citizens on Patrol. He coordinates the security at city events. He coordinates off-duty security requests for police officers at private events, coordination of the Teen Police Academy, the Police Explorer Program, Kids Camp, stop me if you get bored, and also the Summer of Safety, which is a host of programs under one umbrella. In his free time, he writes grants. Next division is our Criminal Investigations Division, led by Captain Billy Rasco. Captain Rasco, in addition to being the commander over the Investigation Division, also works closely with fleet maintenance to ensure that we have all the proper equipment in our police vehicles and as well as our unmarked vehicles. The Investigations Division basically does the follow-up investigation necessary to ensure those cases that can be filed with prosecutors are filed. Those would be the offenses that citizens and business owners report to our police officers. They also respond to major criminal acts. There's a homicide, aggravated rape, aggravated robbery. They're going to come out, make sure that investigation is seen through. Additionally, they work with organizations outside of our business or building. They work with the prosecutors. They work with other agencies such as CPS, Child Advocacy Center. And the relationships that they build there are very important in the success of the mission. They also work with state and local and federal law enforcement agencies. Those relationships are equally important because they bring a lot of assets to bear on the cases that we work, as well as investigative tools. The Investigations Division has, over the years, solved many, many major cases and put many criminals in jail for lengthy periods of time. I'm very proud of the work that those guys do. I'd like to share with you some budget accomplishments that we've had thus far this year. We have created a drone team. That drone team has some pilots that have been certified with the FAA to fly those drones. We've also had a new canine position added to our patrol division. We have selected a dog and the handler of that animal. We hope that position to be fully functional by the end of the year. We are enjoying one position being added to our sworn positions in this budget, and we have hired 3 officers in this budget period, all of which are currently in the academy. Our goals for this budget will be to increase our staffing, to develop our staff, to update our geo-validation software, and to address some equipment needs. I've probably heard about a radio project, a bit of money being spent on. Our patrol staffing model, as it is now, was created in 1992. I was here then. At that time, in 1992, we operated a minimum staff on the street of a supervisor and 3 officers on duty. We raised it in 1992 to a supervisor and 4. That's for the entire town. and has remained at a supervisor in 4 for minimum staffing for approximately 28 years. During that time, as you can imagine, with increases in populations and new businesses, calls for police service have increased, and it has created some issues for us. On the screen now is the current district map, and it shows the 4 patrol districts. The important thing I want you to use here as a visual aid is to understand not only the boundaries, but also the size of these districts. The South District is actually a little smaller than it was. We've adjusted some of the area, but I can remember a former business owner telling me when I was a young patrol officer that I would need a Learjet to cover the South District because it was so large. This is our proposed districts, or our new proposed district map. This map represents changes that are recommended by our entire command staff, and I want to pause and give credit to Captain Starnes and Captain Phillips for the work that they did, the research, and hours that they spent that was necessary for the creation of this visual aid. We're recommending a minimum staffing on duty be changed from the 1 in 4 to 1 in 5 officers. The districts that you're looking at, if you look closely at the map, you'll see are divided into sectors. This is the purpose of this is so that when we move forward in the future, as additional officers are available, we can staff those sectors to give better coverage and address citizen complaints that we're unable to meet at this time. To achieve this goal, the patrol division needs to have a staff that's adequate because we are constantly dealing with fluctuation caused from sickness, injuries, retirements, and unforeseen events that makes us operate probably 90% of the time or more with a minimum staff of 1 in 4 officers. And we're just not able to keep up. So the research that we did to provide you with the information necessary to make this decision focused on 2 areas. It focuses on the creation of police districts and a minimum staffing level, and one of the models that we used is known as a workload model, and the other is based on population. The recommended change in our staffing level is based on research in the following areas. Police staffing in Texas ranges between 1.8 and 2.5 officers per 1,000 citizens. Based on current information, we believe the population of Greenville, Texas to be approximately 32,000 people today. In 2019, citydata.com listed our population at 28,827 people. Research suggests that that has increased since 2019 by 3,700. Additionally, the commuter population during the daytime is approximately 9,200. That means that our daytime population is approaching 40,000 people at times. The International Association of Chiefs of Police uses the workload model to determine adequate staffing levels. The workload model is based on calls for service. When you ring the telephone to the police and an officer is assigned to your call, that's a calls for service. In 2019, an analysis of our calls for service using that workload model indicated that we needed an additional 13 officers to be staffed adequately. We did not do an analysis in 2020 because of the COVID issues. The population formula is based on simple math. Simply indicates by 1,000 citizens you need 2 officers. So if our population is approximately 32,000, we would need 64 officers to be adequately staffed. Both the population model as well as the workload model both say or indicate that we need additional officers for adequate staffing. We believe the citizens of Greenville expect their police department to have adequate staffing, a well-trained and professional staff that's equipped to protect the lives and property of the community and to provide a quick and effective response. Both of these points are contained in our mission statement, in our policies. And to meet these expectations, we will need an adequate staff to do so. The big question I think that everybody wants answered is how we're going to add 12 additional positions and not have a huge economic impact on the budget. First, I would like to share with you how we would like to use those positions. Over the period of time, we would add 7 officers to patrol, 3 to investigations, and we would assign 2 officers to traffic positions in the Operations Support Division. We created a 5-year plan that we believe will manage the economic impact caused by adding these 12 additional police officers to the city budget. We're recommending the 5-year plan that will achieve this goal with the least financial harm. In 2021, we did add 1 position. We're asking that in 2022, 3 additional officers be added to the sworn positions, along with 1 dispatcher. In years 2023 through 2026, we're asking that 2 officers be considered to the sworn position, or added to the sworn positions. And we will continue to monitor the calls for service and the increases in population to update and keep you informed if other changes or recommendations are needed. Our budget priorities this year, see that guy right there, he's really overworked. I'm not sure, maybe he needs to go home. Our budget priorities this year included the creation of a recruitment team, because we know we need people. And nobody works harder than somebody that's invested, you know, if you have ownership. So we've got guys that are going out to other departments in adjacent jurisdictions and even outside the county and soliciting officers. Some of them are doing it in front of their chiefs. We're kind of desperate in that area. We're going to continue with that recruitment team. We're going to continue to advertise on as many outlets as we can. We attend job fairs. We had some success at the last one we went to. Shantae Woodson brought back a few applications. We recruit at local police academies where we have enjoyed some success in the past. And we will have 3 police examinations each year in hopes that we will have, you know, a pool of applicants to pull from. A number of our officers that are not a part of the recruitment team have taken it upon themselves to solicit people that they know, friends at other departments, to come and join the Greenville Police Department. To compete, we would like for the council to consider adding incentives in future budgets. The incentives will help us compete with other police departments or a small pool of qualified applicants. Some of the incentives that other cities are using include education pay, shift differential pay, assignment pay that's competitive, as well as sign-on bonuses. Among our budget priorities is funding for leadership and succession development. We believe investing in our people. We will continue to provide officers with mandated training and developmental training as it relates to the future roles within our department. Funding additional training benefits both the department and the officers. Very important. It also has the potential for attracting new officers whose departments do not fund training. Officers enjoy training simply because it increases their job performance. It enhances it. It increases their knowledge. It keeps them abreast of what's going on in their profession, and it helps them to advance in their career. One of our budgeting priorities is to replace a command post, which we no longer have. We've been without for a couple of years now. The command post would be used at city events, major crime scenes, major fires, and any other major disaster where it may be needed. Seizure money expenditures. The proceeds from seizure money meet certain needs based on state and federal laws that govern the expenditure of these funds. 2 areas that we will consider expending funds, seizure funds in this year, include training and the purchase of body cameras and the software needed to facilitate those. That concludes my presentation. I'll take your questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Cole? That was outstanding, absolutely outstanding presentation. We Appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chief.
What is the competitive environment? I know we talk about competitive cities and comparison cities, and what is I know we adjusted police salaries a couple of years ago and tried to get them on a level playing field with our competitive cities. How do we stand on that now?
I'd have to respond to your question by kind of starting at the top of the hierarchy. From a national perspective, there's a problem in the police profession that's created by negative media environment. And I could stand here for literally hours and talk about statistics that the media gets wrong. They have a saying in the media that if it bleeds, it leads. So they like to be negative because it seems to attract people's attention. The truth of the matter is the ratio that causes the problem of the allegation that police kill so many people is so minute. If I had the statistic in front of me, you wouldn't believe it. But the competitiveness at a local level, and I'll use Roy City, Texas as an example, they got kind of behind. Last year, prior year, they started the process and added 20 new positions to their department. Now, I'm repeating something that an officer in Roy City repeated to one of my officers, so I didn't see this in writing. But adding 20 positions and being aggressive about filling those positions, they increased their starting pay $3,000 above what we start at. They added a $3,000 sign-on bonus. They added vision care to their benefits, and they top out at $3,000 above what we top out at. So it's hard when you have something that was agency such as that's 15 minutes further down the road. At the time that happened, we had just acquired 2 Sulphur Springs officers, and they're great officers. One of them's a 9-year veteran, the other's 20. In fact, the 20-year veteran is the one that is going to be our next dog handler. He had prior canine experience, and he brought that set of skills with him. So 2 other Sulphur Springs officers that these 2 guys were bragging to about how good it is to be at Greenville PD bypassed us when they found out that Roy City had added that. So I tell you that story to say this. When we hire a green person, and Mayor, you know this because you've heard this statistic before, when we hire a green officer with no experience and we have to pay them while they go to an academy and all the expenses from the time the testing process starts until they're on their own, we will have spent $125,000.
Right.
So does it make sense to attract certified officers that we spend a little bit on the front end to get those qualified people? Because other departments are competing for them. And we are under the microscope from a civil liability perspective. Everything we do is being picked to pieces. So if that answers your question, if not, I would be happy to gather some more information and meet with you again.
Are there any other questions for the Mr.
Chief, I've got one. Of all your budget cycle priorities, which one would you rank right now as your most needed? Staffing or?
Well, staffing, obviously. We're in a pickle right now because we've got 5 openings, 3 people in the academy that aren't counting as openings. We've got somebody on maternity leave or on light duty because she's about to be on maternity leave. We've got an officer out that's injured, a couple of other leaves. When you boil it all down, there's about 10 or 12 officers that aren't positions that aren't producing right now. One of my investigators is in the hospital. He may have gotten out by now. He's having serious medical issues. When I say fluctuation, those are the things I'm talking about. When we don't have enough officers to put like 6 or 7 officers on the street, and then we experience the things that we're experiencing right now, we've got guys that are being forced to be on standby. They don't have a choice. They're told to be on standby, which means they have to respond if their telephone rings. We have individuals that are having to volunteer or be forced to work overtime, and it's really fatiguing. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't done it in years, but I know when you're fatigued, you're more likely to make a mistake. You sometimes get very bitter because you get forced to work overtime. And, you know, it's a part of our job to do so, and we're servants of the public, but we're also people with families. And those families and the relationships that you have, the things that you miss with your kids, the sporting events that these guys don't get to go to, or job or school functions, you can't get that back. It's gone forever.
You mentioned the staffing level, a goal of 64, I guess, by 2026. I think that was, did I miss the staffing level you currently are at now?
We have 56 positions right now.
Okay, so that's the 11 that you're talking
And
about
that's,
essentially.
those two formulas say we need that number of officers right now. But I'm smart enough
No,
to
I
realize
understand.
you can't do that all at
Yes.
one time.
Right. Any other questions? That was an excellent presentation. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Mayor. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Okay, item C2 is Parks and Recreation Department by Brent Quarles, Parks and Recreation Director. How are you tonight?
Jerry,
I'm sorry. Yes.
Ben had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ben, I didn't hear you. I don't know where you are, Ben.
I'm in Florida. It's a long way to shout.
You had a question for Mr. Cole?
Yes. So my question was if any of the other items in this sort of projection for what they need this year would actually help with recruiting.
Can you repeat that?
So he said the projections that he's, for this year, that what they're needing, would that help with your recruiting? Any of the specific items, would it help with recruiting of what you're requesting?
Can you be more specific about what it is you're saying? Are you asking like if we were immediately offer sign-on
Microphone.
bonuses?
If you were to get body cams, signing bonuses, anything like that would help you in the recruiting effort?
It may, with the recruiting, the officers would enjoy having them because it removes a lot of the allegations that are often made about them because of simple review. And I can remember over the years, former chiefs bringing people in who didn't realize we had cameras in the car. I mean, we have cameras in the car, but obviously when you get out and go in somebody's home or around the corner of a building, you lose the visual of that camera. But often in the past, when you would show somebody, hey, this is what the camera showed happen, and they're going, okay, all right, I guess I was wrong. So obviously, having the audio from a camera attached to you along with the video can sometimes clear an officer immediately from what they're being accused of.
Did that answer Ben's question? You did? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cole.
Yes.
Excellent. Brent?
Mayor, council, good evening. And we went through some of this with the new council member orientation. So some of this is going to be a little bit redundant, but we'll try to go through it pretty quick. Live, love, play, that's something that we really try to hone in with our staff on putting programs and activities together that, that people want to live in Greenville and play in Greenville. So when we look at that, we compare ourselves based on NRPA performance reports. And so this year we just got these statistics in. So when you're looking at revenue per capita, we're at $18.82, and the average for cities the same size as us is $19.38. Revenue percentage of expenditures, we're at 27.9% compared to 22.9% to our peers. Fee-based programs, which is something we're really going to be pushing over the next 2 years, we're at 15 and our peers are at 71. So, and a lot of that's kind of odd on the surface because they're using contractors to do a lot of those programs and counting those where we did not in terms of this report. And then acreage of non-park sites that we maintain 140 acres of non-park sites as opposed to 10 acres that our peers are managing. And then expenditures per capita, 67.49 compared to 88.30. And so our staff does a really good job of managing our expenditures. Acres per thousand residents, we're at 8.6. The average is at 9.9, so we're not too far off, but that is something we need to start looking at. And then residents per park, you can kind of see that 3,140 compared to 22,750 or 77. And really 2,500 is the recommended. So, that's how we kind of, when we're looking at how much acreage we need, we're looking at residents per acre, or per park, and looking at it in those terms. And then staffing, full-time employees, 9.1 per 10,000 compared to 8.3, which is kind of misleading because we're also, that person's probably the one person that's on the 140 additional acres, non-park acres that we maintain. So in our departmental staffing, we have 9 full-time employees in parks, 1 part-time, 4 full-time in GSL, and 1 part-time, 4 full-time in events and recreation, and then 3 part-time there, and then 1 full-time person in golf, if you can believe that, because he does a really good job. So, and then here's kind of the way we're structured out: recreation, parks, and golf. You know, and on the recreation side, we have our events, special event and recreation specialist, and then we have our senior programmer and rec center attendant on the same side, and then all our GSL is aligned. Our park maintenance, they maintain, you know, we have 8 city parks here in Greenville. 6 of them are classified as neighborhood, 2 regional that we classify as regional. Technically, Graham isn't a regional park by acreage. However, the number of amenities at Graham Park would qualify it as a regional park. The Greenville Sports Park, that facility is 110 acres. We have 2 guys that never leave there. They're there every day of the week, 7 days a week for the most part. So, and we maintain 220 acres of park space, and then 120 acres of non-park space, and then 140 acres of undeveloped space. Cemeteries, that's something we contract out, and we did that just a few meetings ago. For the year, we do that annually on an annual contract. So it is cheaper for us to contract that out than staff that. So back in 2011, 2012, we moved the 4 guys that were over in cemetery maintenance over into parks to help offset some of the additional property that we were maintaining. And then we cover 70 hours a week with our park staff. Moving into the golf course, this year, of course, COVID, you know, hurt a lot of all departments, but especially recreation, parks, that type of stuff. So golf, though, it seemed to benefit golf, believe it or not. So we had 2,418 member rounds, and then we had 3,237 weekday rounds, which was more than the previous 2 years. Weekend rounds, we had 2,361, and then for total rounds of 8,016 for the year. And the golf course is operated out of an enterprise fund, the golf fund, and so revenues in, expenditures out of that fund. And like I said, there's 1 full-time guy, Bo Hartline. He's been here over 40 years. So for us, that's something we're looking at, planning for the future. How do you replace a Bo Hartline? And it gets very expensive, I'll tell you, just in the little bit of research I've done. So 62 acres is that facility, and then we kind of go through what their functions are. They cover 98 hours a week. Every 7 days they're open. Our facility's open 98 hours every 7. So in the youth sports realm, we offered this year, due to COVID, we were reduced a little bit. We had 18 leagues offered. We had 189 teams, 1,710 participants, and we scheduled 810 games. And might be more than that if baseball, if it keeps raining. So they're killing us with rainouts. Adults suffered a little bit, 11 leagues, 48 teams, 607 participants, and scheduled 177 games on the adult side. And so this GSL is much like golf. It's a recreation fund, so it's revenues in, revenues out, or expenditures out, sorry. And, you know, they spend a majority of their time seeking volunteers, dealing with parents, coaches, which is becoming more and more difficult, finding coaches and officials and staffing youth sports from the recreation community, recreation side is becoming very, very difficult. We're paying double what we were paying officials 2 years ago, and there just aren't any officials. Nobody wants to ref, nobody wants to come out and get yelled at, and so that's proven to be very difficult for us. So in our GSL, they cover 91 hours a week. Recreation and events, this year we scheduled 6 events, 12 activities, 10 movies in the park, and then we've had 8 tournaments. And then we just had a guy call in and book up another 7 for the fall, a group out of Tyler. So tournaments seem to be a big thing right now. Over at the Recreation Center, we've had 705 senior program attendees. Our attendance for our exercise classes is 470 for the year. We've totaled 171 rentals, and we've had 100 memberships this year, so which is pretty good. The majority of them are on the youth side. Recreation events, same enterprise fund, and this staff really, their whole job or performance function is to put people in Reese Davis, schedule senior programs, exercise classes, and then special events, and then manage and advertise and recruit membership. There's kind of a list of the things those folks do on a day-to-day basis. So this year, facility projects. This is what we did to JLU Splash Pad this year, before on the left, after, and that was $10,000, and that's something we'll have to do about once every 4 to 5 years, depending on chemicals. When people come to the splash pads, it's the one thing, whether it's shampoo or soaps, once it gets in there and cleans it, we're having to use a lot of chemical, whether it's acid or chlorine, to try to clean that. The water comes out and it will fade, the surfacing. There's basketball courts we did at Graham. We got completed. We have everything for Arnold. We haven't had a chance to get the goal up. The courts are resurfaced. So we went through and resurfaced both those courts, put a logo on them, and then put the acrylic backboards there so that's something they can't tear down. That's the biggest thing we deal with. All our rims are double because you'll come out there and kids they'll drag trash cans across the park so they can get up there and hang off the rim and do some TikTok videos. So shade structures. These things are probably one of the biggest impacts we've made the last several years. If you've been to the sports park, there's not many trees, and so we've been doing one field per year. We're on year 5, so we're asking to replace maroon field, or do maroon field, not replace. It would be new, and then all we have left is orange, and then all our shade structures are complete. So, but they have a big impact. We put benches underneath there, new trash cans, and so people utilize them, especially tournaments and league games. Zip lines, we did Graham Park, and we did, I didn't notice that kid doesn't look like he's having a good time, does he? Could have used a better photo. So Graham Park and then Oak Creek Park, we put zip lines in there, just to kind of ease the traffic that we have at the sports park, and it has worked. There's people on those zip lines at those parks all the time. So, and we did that at a cost of about $57,000. We did have a partnership with the Park Street Historical Association, and they donated the money to build Arnold Park Dog Park, and so we put the fence up. They bought all the stuff. We installed it, and so that was about a little under $9,000, $8,500. So, that's something that we have a lot of people requesting, dog parks, and now it's even moved into big dog, little dog. So it continues to morph the more these facilities go up. Our capital request for this year, we're asking for an air core aerator. We currently have one. We have some issues at the sports park with the soil. Our athletic fields, even though they're irrigated, the soil's moving up and down, and we have swells in one of our fields, probably up to 18 inches. That'll come up and go down, and it's probably about 10, 12 feet wide. So, for us, we looked at getting or water injections. Very pricey, about $55,000 per field. And I'm not an engineer. Press probably knows a little bit more about that, but the one thing that keeps coming up for us is aeration. We do have an aerator, however, it's made for greens. It's 3 foot wide. So we have just under 19 acres of TIF that we would need to aerate. So this one is 72 inches wide, so gets out past your tires and gets a little bit more depth. So we can aerate more often, which is what we need to do, is aerate and top dress. A triplex mower at the golf course. And this is something we would take out of the golf fund. Most all our equipment is on a lease package. So what we would propose is a 3-year lease would come in at about $19,000 a year. And then a 4-year lease would be about $16,000 a year. The only difference is that on these lease programs, you get a year full covered warranty and maintenance. So then you only have to maintain them for 2 years. Problem with the golf course is they use this equipment so often, daily, and sometimes multiple times per day, so you're putting a lot of hours on these machines. But it's the one thing we have to have. If our greens mower breaks down, we don't have a backup. So, and that's something you have to have on a golf course. The next thing, same thing with a triplex mower, which is a fairway unit, 2400, and so with that, same thing, only it's fairways. It's definitely a higher price tag. When you get to the leases, $10,000 a year on a 3-year lease and $8,200 a year for the 4-year lease. And then what we would do is take the existing fairway unit at the golf course and move it to the sports park. And so cycle that one out, because in the past we've purchased those outright. And then shade structure, which would come from hotel motel, which would be for Maroon Field, would be about $46,117. Comes with benches, comes with new trash receptacles, and we color coordinate those to match up, which helps the visitors when they come out there. It's easy to get confused when you're walking around out there. Grand Park parking lot. This park, we did a Parks and Wildlife grant in 2012, and this parking lot has began to fail. And you can look along the right side of that picture and you can see it's all down. That side, anytime it rains, it gets a little bit worse. The ice storms didn't help us. So I got with Press and Streets and they worked up a cost estimate, and it's going to be about $93,400 to fix this one. And then some of the little things we can do that make a big impact, picnic tables. We're trying to do away with all our wood picnic tables that warp and people bend because they move around. And so what we're starting to do is all the vinyl coated. They have a 15 to 20 year shelf life. We're bolting them down where they can't move them around, but they're always accessible for public to utilize. Landscape Reese Davis, much like we did outside the Civic Center here. Same type of landscaping. We have some drainage issues where we have water running back to the facility. And so this would include running drains to drain the water away from the building. And then a basketball court at the sports park. It's a full court, and it would cost about $18,000 to resurface it, replace the goals, add some logos, and really kind of dress it up. And then Oak Creek Park. For us, when everybody's always asking us about grants and grant programs, we have to have a master plan before we can get into the grant side of this. And so that's something we're working on now with the comprehensive plan. The other part is trails. It's the number one thing that's asked for, but when you're looking at grants, they don't want to build your trail for you. They want to help. They want to pay to connect your trails. And so what we've kind of put emphasis on is doing something that's attainable and putting trails in all our parks first. That way people are using them and then use grant money to connect them. And so this is the master plan at Oak Creek Park of what it would look like finished out. Have a dog park, multi-purpose fields, basketball court, sand volleyball court, new pavilion, updated pavilion, and then trails and trees, and would be irrigated. And so for us, the first step of that is we have to get a survey, which comes in at $25,000, and then a 2,500 linear foot trail, which would be just the outside trail of what you're seeing, would be about $200,600, and then solar lights would be about $49,300 would light it. So that project total would be about $275,900. Last year, we did change updated all our ordinances, thanks to Ms. Carroll. I'm sure she wanted to kill us. Anytime I mention ordinance, I'm sure it's PTSD. But what we did with part of these ordinances was parkland dedication. And so the council asks us every year to give an update on where we're at on that. And so this is how we looked at, the subcommittee and staff looked at putting these districts together. And so, you know, part of that parkland dedication is every house built pays a park fee, a park development fee. And so if you build a house in District 1, you know, the money has to be spent in District 1. And so for the subcommittee, what often happens with these is cities lose, kind of quit spending on areas that aren't being developed, and so all your new parks are over on one side of town. And so what this council did was make sure that we have a match that helps offset that. And so this year, just to give you an idea of what we brought in revenue-wise for this year, District 1, we brought in $64,900, and it goes up every week. We change it. Last week it was $64,900. So this week I'm sure it's a little bit different. And then District 2, we brought in $6,431. District 3 also $6,431. And then District 4, $1,169.38. And these are just infill lots, would be my bet. Just because with District 1, I know there's a lot of infill lots going in up there. So, in terms of that, you know, then whatever the total is this year, you know, the city would match up to 1 cent. And then next year we spend planning that on where we're going to spend that. But, you know, if 64,000 came in District 1, then we would put that, use the match on the opposite side, just to ensure that we're always developing all 4 districts of our parks. Future needs. When you look at developing existing park space, we have 140 acres there that we can put a lot of stuff on. So, you know, property is very expensive right now, and so for us, it would be in our best interest to develop the property we have. Indoor athletic facility. This is something that, like I kind of touched on, athletics, recreation sports has geared more towards privatization. So people don't want to be in, you know, like it was when I was a kid where, you know, Farmers National Bank sponsored a team, Lions Club. People aren't doing that anymore. They're going to the Rise in Rockwall. They're going to Sports Authority in Plano. And so for us, we're at maximum capacity right now during basketball season because with the GISD facilities, we're maxed out. We don't have enough gyms. And so for us, you know, an indoor athletic facility would be able to accomplish soccer, basketball, volleyball. It's just an investment that really involves a lot of people, that a lot of people can utilize. Sports park, splash pad, and parking. You know, that's the biggest thing. If you've been to the sports park during a weeknight when we have games, when it's not rained out, it's usually pretty packed. So we added parking back 4 years ago, I believe, and I believe at that time it was about $3,300 per space, and that was the low bid. So, you know, parking lots are very expensive. Splash pad, big enough to go out there, you know, you're looking at a little over $1 million, probably $1.1, $1.2 million. And then trail system, like we talked about, in terms of developing trails within all our parks so we can go out and get grants to help connect all our park systems. And then finally, Parks Capital Plan. You know, ultimately our end goal would be to have $500,000 a year that we can upkeep and replace. Because if you look at all the projects we've done, it's primarily been replacing old playgrounds, replacing, you know, the pool with a splash pad, and then $500,000 a year for new development. And I'll entertain any questions or comments.
Are there any questions from the council? I have a question. Have you considered in your park plan, including, you know, we cleared the Austin School area a couple of years ago. Have you considered anything for that area as a park, possibly?
Yes, sir.
Has that been considered or discussed?
Yes, sir, it has.
Okay.
And we have a kind of an informal plan laid out, a map that would lay that out. Yes, sir.
Okay. How many acres is that? Do you know?
It's a little under 1 full acre. So I think what
it's not very large.
Right, and I think what it was going to be, we put a trail around the outside, put a playground, some bench seating with one structure, and a basketball court, and I think it was running around $270,000.
Okay.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Are y'all planning on doing anything to that park out the LP Waters, behind the LP Waters?
Waters. The old Carver
The
field.
Carver.
Yeah, we took the lights down last year. We're in the process of taking that fence down, and then just trying to, we have a hog issue out there, that we've had a lot of issues with hogs. And so the fence is kind of dilapidated, so what we've been doing is working to take that down and work with the school district to give that back to them. It's their land.
Okay.
And so what we're looking for is something a little bit more visible. Back there, I think there's been some issues with people gathering back there, and so that's what we've been looking at with that facility. So we got the lights down last year. We donated them to Greenville Christian School, and then now we're in the process of getting ready to try to take that fence down, bleachers, and that little building. So, but if it's the will of the council, we could definitely look at doing something like that. Yes, sir.
Okay.
With the indoor facility that for future needs, where are you planning to put this? At the sports complex?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, it would be south of the stadium in that open area. There's, I think it used to be, I think before there was a facility planned to go there, and it would be in that same location.
Excuse my ignorance. Would Phillips Field be a part of the school district?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Yeah, Phillips Field, and there was an agreement a long time ago in terms of the city used that, part of that as a park, and that kind of, in 2010, that kind of went back to the school district. So,
Okay.
and we've talked with Mr. Anderson on, how can we utilize, because yes, even at Reese Davis, they have a playground that's within, 100 and 200 feet of Reese Davis. So, it would be nice if that was something that was open. However, there's a lot of red tape that goes with that when you get into those city-school relationships on who's responsible for replacing the equipment, which is the expensive part, right, and maintaining it and upkeeping it. So.
Okay.
Are there any more questions?
No.
Thank you very much. That was outstanding. Thank you. Next up, item C3 is administrative services. Talia?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Talia Wilner, and we will cover administrative services, which I like to think of as our kind of in-house service provider for all of the other city departments. That encompasses the finance department, central services, fleet maintenance, information technology, and municipal court. Over at the municipal court, the main thing that they do over there obviously is processing citations, and that whole process from the point that the citation is issued all the way to the point that it's taken care of and paid out. So payment plans, maintaining and updating any warrant information, setting up and scheduling the court docket, jury summons, pre-trials, arraignments, and then entering and assessing code violations. Typically in a normal year, they would play a major role in warrant roundup. They have not done that for the last 2 years because of COVID and all of the complications that surrounded that. This upcoming year, we will be doing warrant roundup again. So that'll be starting up over there as well. Municipal court is housed over at the police and courts building. Looking at the numbers from last year, again, because of COVID, I feel like we've heard that phrase so many times, but because of COVID, 2019, 2020, we definitely saw a little downtick in both traffic and non-traffic cases. So you can see those numbers there from 1920. Traffic cases finished the year as an active number. We had around 2,100 cases. Now that we're issuing citations again, we're almost at that number at only halfway through the year. So you can see they've kind of picked back up to a normal level again. Same story with non-traffic cases. Active cases at the end of last year were at around 1,100, and at this point in the year, we're up to 1,200 already. So we're starting to see back to normal levels of citations at this point. Finance department, we do accounting services for both the city as well as GEUS. The two major things that we go through in finance are the annual budget, which is an extremely long process. We start in February and we don't wrap up until around October, as well as our annual financial report and our audit. That process starts up approximately November and wraps up in March. This year, we will actually be going through two audits. One will be our regular annual financial audit. Another one we'll go through this year that's kind of new is going to be a single audit. And that happens when you receive a certain threshold of grant expenditures. You go through a whole entire separate audit for those grant funds. So that's something we'll be doing this upcoming year that you wouldn't normally see. So be on the lookout for that. We manage all purchasing services, purchasing card management for the whole city, cash management, funds investing, anything that relates to a dollar for all departments in the city that handle any kind of money. And that is housed out of the municipal auditorium building. Looking at some of the numbers for last year, didn't really see a lot of change or effect in our numbers during the pandemic because business as usual did go on for the city. Bank drafts, bank payments, checks issued for last year were at around 8,900, and this year at this point it's 5,800. So those are all payments to our vendors, to our contractors, everything like that. Cash receipts processed, that's anytime someone walks into our personal office, calls one of our phones to make a payment. We took 2,000 payments last year, and this year up to this point we've taken 1,200. Journal entry lines, this is really exciting stuff. If you're an accountant, you do a journal entry and it has 2 lines in it usually every time. We did 51,000 of those last year, and we're at almost 30,000 this year. So basically anytime a transaction occurs in the city, we have to record that so that it eventually makes it to our financial statements, and so that's where those journal lines are important. Central services, this is our facilities maintenance department, made up of 2 kind of separate areas, our custodial services and then also our building maintenance. So our technicians who take care of all of our facilities as far as electric, plumbing, paint, any kind of maintenance issues they handle. We also, underneath that umbrella falls our special event staffing for both this building as well as the municipal auditorium, and then setting up any event, kind of these tables and chairs that are in here right now. There's always a layout for those events, and every single time there is an event, one of those staff members will be there setting it up, breaking it down, making sure that our facilities are taken care of during those times. Just looking at some numbers, we currently maintain and service 22 buildings. In that department, we have 2 building maintenance technicians that take care of all of that. It's about 148,000 square feet that our custodians cover on a daily basis. Our Civic Center, kind of after the pandemic, we've seen a huge increase in use of this building, not only because there's now council meetings here, but just because, things kind of slowed down during that time. Now they're picking back up again. Last year, we staffed 172 events here, and this year, just up to this point, we've staffed 122 events. So definitely seen an increased use of this building. Next year, and in years beyond, we've started several just kind of annual maintenance programs. We have the AC program that we started several years back when summer first started with the city. Last year, we started a heavy-duty carpet cleaning rotation for all of our buildings. We started a planned program of replacing our parking lot lights with LEDs. So we definitely hope and plan to continue doing all of those things, as well as adding additional programs where they're needed so that we don't ever get to a point where our buildings are just in a state of disrepair. Looking forward, potentially in the years to come, there's a couple of restroom remodels that we might consider at the library as well as at the annex building. And then we're currently in the process of doing an analysis on the library roof to see what the source of those leaks are and whether the roof needs a full replacement or whether we're just looking at some drainage issues there. So that's the next year of building maintenance. The other side of central services is our fleet maintenance department. They're responsible for basically anything that has a motor or wheels for the city and GEUS. They track those vehicles and those pieces of equipment for their, basically their prime replacement time, as well as making sure that they're always safe for our staff as well as for citizens. They inspect those things regularly, and of course do any repairs that's needed. They outfit all of our police vehicles, so all of that is done in-house. They take care of all of that. Fleet maintenance by the numbers. Vehicles maintained and serviced is 145. Equipment, units, and trailers, so that's anything like a generator, mowers, obviously trailers, 112 of those. And then the frequency of the inspections that they perform kind of varies on the type of vehicle that it is. Police vehicles are weekly, fire is monthly, and then everything is touched at least once a quarter to make sure it's in proper working order. I've had a few people ask about our enterprise fleet leasing program, and just so that you kind of know what that is, in 2019, 2020, we kind of launched this program as a pilot. It's where, versus purchasing vehicles outright every single year for the full dollar amount, excuse me, we're on a capital lease program with Enterprise, which allows us to replace vehicles once they're 3 to 5 years old versus 20 to 30 years old. So what that means for the city is that we get a much more efficient vehicle fleet. You know, you're not having to do thousands of dollars of repairs on these 20-year-old vehicles every year. Instead, you're keeping a vehicle for 3 to 5 years, and then you're selling it while it still holds some value. Then the idea is you take that money that you then get from selling that vehicle that's still in great shape, and you plow it back into new vehicles. So we went into this, you know, hoping to see lower maintenance expenses over time, and of course we weren't able to see that until we've, you know, entered some of these vehicles into our fleet, and now we're at a point where we have seen some kind of result of that and some savings. So we currently have our 2020-2021 projected budget entered in, and it looks like this year is when we will start to see, and we are seeing and have seen a good chunk of that maintenance expense. So at this point, we've got about 65 vehicles currently added into the fleet. We've been receiving messages from Enterprise, and of course, I'm sure that you all have heard this just in the news and everywhere else in the world, but vehicles right now are hard to come by, they're hard to get. So there is a potential that we won't be seeing new vehicles in the next year, so I would expect this to kind of flatten out for a year or so before we continue to see any improvement. Obviously, you'll never get to a point where there's zero maintenance expense. You know, you're always gonna do some upkeep on your vehicles, but I think that we have, at this point, it's safe to say that we've seen the expected maintenance savings that we hoped for with this program. And then last but not least, IT. They're always here. You guys always see them. They do a great job for us. They perform regular system backups. They're constantly evaluating new technology, not only to improve the end user's experience as far as employees and citizens, but also just to keep our infrastructure safe, to keep all of our equipment safe, to keep our city records safe. Our billing system, everything that integrates and interacts with citizens has to be kept safe. I would say that's probably of utmost concern at this, you know, in this day and age. They maintain and they service laptops, desktop computers, printers, servers, obviously the network, anything that plugs in and is used to communicate. Basically, they ensure that it's always in proper working order, and they do a great job of that for us. As of most recent count, this is kind of always changing as far as software programs maintained. We're at 31, 112 hardware units. And then as far as just requests for help, a count of help desk tickets, requests, whether it's emails or phone calls, currently averaging a little over 2,100 a year, and that's among 4 staff members. So in addition to, hey, I can't open Excel, you know, they're kind of keeping all of our stuff running and safe and operational for us, so they do a great job. I know that was a lot of information. Do you have any questions?
Are there any questions for Talia?
No, you answered all my least questions.
Any questions? That's a very good presentation. Thank you, Talia. I think at this time we will go into executive session for item under section 551.087. Are we able to go back to the, are we going to have executive session here, or can we go back to the back? Okay. So we'll be back here at 6 o'clock.
The rest recipe for great food is simple. Make it fresh. Wings to Go in Greenville, where every order is a custom order made with fresh ingredients. Wings to Go, 7818 Wesley Street in Greenville. Simply great wings.
Need a part for the right price? Look for that red and blue sign. Henley Auto Supply at 1510 Stonewall. Over 800,000 CarQuest parts to choose from. Domestic, European, and Asian parts. Henley Auto Supply at 903-455-1969. 455-1969. Henley Auto Supply has the right part to keep your vehicle running. And backed by the best hometown service. Henley Auto Supply. Great people, great products, great prices. Henley Auto Supply and CarQuest.